Well, that was some really good tips, but this is the most important question out of the day.
Okay.
Who's your favorite twin, Alec or me?
I can't answer that. I love you guys both equally.
Many people know this man as the Bachelor from season 22, but did you also know he's a successful realtor who did over $1 million in sales last year and also balances a racing career? Arie Luyendyk Jr., thanks for having me. Oh yeah, and not to mention he's my older brother.
Big brother here.
All right, so I'm gonna fire it away. A couple of questions that I've always been excited to ask you. The first question is getting into real estate is extremely saturated at the moment.
Yeah.
What made you want to do it 2 years ago? Because even at that point, it was pretty saturated. What was your drive to want to start real estate?
So I was in real estate. The first time I was in real estate was from 2004 till 2007, and then the market crashed. So I found some other things to keep me busy, like going on the Bachelorette, and then got back into racing. So sort of this time around, my friend was doing really well, and I was working these automotive events, and I was traveling a ton. And I thought to myself, if I ever really want to start a family, it's going to be hard for me to be at home a lot because I'm on the road all the time. So I sort of jumped ship and tried to get into real estate, even though it was really saturated. And I carved my way through, and actually last year I sold 13.8 million. Oh. The year before that was 6 million. So it's going good. I found a niche, and I think that's really important in real estate.
Awesome, that's great. And so from social media, a lot of people think, wow, he gets to have fun, he's traveling, he's doing all these things. But, behind the scenes, you're working really hard on real estate. And that's maybe could come down to time efficiency. So how do you balance your life when it comes to your personal life, traveling, when it comes to even racing, because you're still involved in that, and as well as growing your real estate business? How do you balance that time?
Yeah, I think obviously on social media you kind of put out the fun stuff, the trips, like the epic views, like where you're at, like the high moments of your life. And obviously behind all those great moments, there's a lot of work that has to be done for you to be able to do those things. For me, I think the biggest thing in anything that I do, whether it's racing, real estate, or any sort of business venture, it's all about networking. So it's all about being around great people, using those contacts to your advantage. And coming from a background to where I always had to find money to go racing and sponsorship and raising money to go racing, it was all about connecting people. And it's the same in real estate, but in real estate it's a lot easier because people actually want to buy a house. It's really hard to get somebody to put a name on the side of a race car. Mm. So the transition from racing to real estate was an easy one for me.
That's great. I didn't even realize that racing and real estate could actually have some things in common.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover. I think the biggest thing was for me, I took the people that I was working hard with to find and raise money for racing, and I turned them into real estate clients. Because I think at the end of the day, you're selling something, mm-hmm. And sales is pretty much the same across the board, whether you're selling knives or you're selling cars or you're selling houses or you're selling sponsorship. It's all about getting each party what they need, and making them feel like they got a deal at the same time.
Right. That's good advice for sure. What is one example of one of the biggest challenges you've had in your real estate career so far, and how you overcame it?
I think the hardest thing is getting started. I mean, I think there's a lot of new agents that go, how do you get business? I think that's the toughest thing. For me, I found a little bit of a niche. I would basically go to open houses. I would scan the MLS every day. I would try to find off-market deals. If I found a really good deal, I would actually put an offer in under my own name. And then I would put and/or assignee, and I would essentially, in the inspection period, for those of you that don't know real estate, there's this 10-day window when you can back out of a sale and get your money back. what I would do is, if it's a really good deal, I would write the contract in my own name. Then in those 10 days, I would try to pass off to an investor, to a friend of mine, or to somebody I would try to loan some money so that I could actually buy it myself and go around and sell it right away. It's called flipping paper. And I think that's how I got my big start, is I had a really great group of people behind me. And when I found a great deal, I would pass off to them, they would make money, and then they would trust in me. And then I'd end up listing their homes, and by gaining that trust.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah,
I like that.
so I think it's all about getting started. So kind of find your niche, work on your sphere of influence, like, you know, who's around you, and that's kind of how you get started.
I like that, because I was going to ask you that question. You know, how do young real estate agents or people that are fresh in the business get started? And that's definitely a really, really good tip. So Arie, what is one of your most proudest moments in real estate?
Oh man, it's hard because I've had a lot of really awesome sales. I had a $7 million sale, which was huge. But sometimes the little deals are the hardest. I'll say that I think my most creative deal was a friend of mine. We were trying to buy him a house. We found him this house that he wanted, but the asking was $4.5 million. And his budget, the top of his budget was 2.1. So I was trying to figure out a way to sort of negotiate this deal. The reason why I couldn't get it done at first, because the builder lived next door, so he didn't want to lower the price, because if we lowered the price too much, it was going to affect the value of his house. So I came up with a creative idea. I thought, okay, there's no pool in the backyard. This house is brand new, but it needs some like big items like the pool and landscaping. I said, why don't we do this deal at 2.3, and I'll credit you, or we'll do the deal at 2.3, but then credit me $150,000 towards putting in the pool, putting in some landscaping. So essentially he got the house for $2.1 million, but on paper it said that he closed for 2.3, so the builder could retain their value. So that was kind of the most creative deal that I sort of put together, and it closed, and I was happy with it because both parties really felt like they got a great deal. They felt like they won that day basically, and my buyer was really happy. And at the time, it was my biggest sale. So I think that was my biggest win.
That's great. That's a good example of not only being able to close a deal, but doing it and making your clients happy at the end of the day is the most important part.
Yeah, it's all about, there's a lot of deals that fall out in escrow. So basically, a lot of times two parties will come together, they'll agree on something, but then for some reason it falls through and it doesn't close. And it's all about getting to the finish line, closing the deal. And that was one example of having to be really like creative and making it happen. So I felt like that was a big win.
That's awesome. That's great. So here's a question then. What is your favorite part about being a real estate agent? What makes you wake up in the morning and go, I love this job?
I just like the hustle. I like, obviously you like the commission check, but it's really hard to get to that point. I like the hustle. I like working with people. I love finding like a young family a home. That's so cool to be able to be such a big part of someone's life, because at the end of the day, they're making this huge decision to buy a home and you're a big part of that. So I think there's this gratifying side of finding someone their dream home, and then also the fun of negotiation. My favorite part is negotiating the deal. So I sort of pride myself on getting my buyers the best deal, and that's kind of what drives me.
Great. Well, that's good. I like that. I'm sure that's inspiring to a lot of real estate agents, that to keep them fighting, to keep them excited. But I have one question. What are some current challenges that you're facing right now?
I think the hardest thing, coming off of The Bachelor, has been sort of keeping my client base, because everyone thinks I'm too busy to sell real estate. I think that's one huge hurdle that I have. And now my client base is trending to be younger, which usually tends to mean cheaper houses. So normally I would specialize in luxury, and I love all the clients that I have, but I'm losing some of the higher end clients because I think the show has, in a way, made people feel like I'm on TV and that's what I do. Right. And I don't have time for the big listings that I used to. So that's one of my biggest hurdles right now, is trying to kind of convince my client base, like, no, I'm in town, I'm ready to sell your house, let's do it, while still sort of riding the wave of The Bachelor and still being able to do events and do little TV gigs here and there.
Right.
So balancing all that's been difficult.
I'm sure it has. Well, yeah, I mean, every real estate agent faces challenges, and that's certainly a unique one, but it's still incredible that you're able to maintain the business that you've had through all of that. So that's just being efficient, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun balance. I mean, it's like, that's the best part about real estate. I think people who want to get in real estate, they love the freedom of being able to set their own schedule, or if they have kids, they can work around their kids' school schedule and, you know, still be great parents and be there for their kids all the time. And I think that's kind of the thing that I love about it, is I'm still able to race. I'm still able to do some TV here and there. You know, Lauren and I are expecting, so I'm going to want to be home. So you can still do that and have a lot of freedom. I think the biggest thing of being someone who works at home, though, like any other job where you work at home, you do have to really set goals for yourself, make yourself accountable, set yourself a schedule so that you know, are very efficient throughout the day and that you're getting things done for your clients. So there are some challenges to being your own boss, but at the end of the day, it's really gratifying.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So Arie, earlier you mentioned about being creative during some of your real estate deals. What are some other good examples of that you've done?
I think it's all about closing the deal at the end of the day. So you have to figure out how to get that done. So it might not be creativity, but just more problem solving. You know, I think agents are problem solvers. If you have an issue with plumbing or electrical, or if the roof is falling over or something that you need to fix, like you need to figure out a way to get the deal to the finish line. You know, the one creative deal I did where I added in the pool as like an incentive and discounted the price, that's one example. I think more or less, if you, creative agents are the ones that market really well, because everyone puts their listing on MLS and then just hopes they get a buyer. But you really have to be smart sometimes in the way you take photographs, or you hold like really awesome parties at like a really nice listing. For example, like a broker open. You know, one time we did a giveaway so that every broker that came into the property, you know, they'd want a gift card if they attended, so to get more traffic through the house. So it's all about sort of thinking a little bit outside the box, because you do want to set yourself apart.
Right, because there's a lot of people to do that against, so you have to come up with something to be creative.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could have, just on this block, there's 4 homes for sale, and there might be one buyer. So what sets you apart? What sets your house apart other than just the house itself? Because a lot of times a house will sell itself, but there's a lot of homes that need a lot of help. And that's when a good agent comes in. And I've been lucky to sell a few houses that other agents had been able to sell before.
Right. So. Those are some good examples. You also are involved in buying and flipping. Is there any advice to anybody that's interested in doing something on that path?
Yeah.
What is some good advice? What have you learned in the past? Because you have a couple projects.
Yeah. So the one that I just recently finished last year, and that's on the market now, it's all about buying it right. You know, at the end of the day, it's about getting the property below market, and a lot of times that's the hardest part. Once you have the property, then it's all about controlling the build costs. Like for example, we have a flip coming up. You know, we have 3 different architects we interviewed. We chose one. Now we have 3 to 4 different general contractors. We'll show them the build plans. We'll get quotes from each of them. And at that point, it's all about, you know, making sure that you don't overspend, because you can. A lot of people, I think, when they do a flip, they envision how they would love to live in a house, but then they spend too much money, and then they don't make money at the end of the day.
Right.
So it's about controlling the costs, getting the property cheap, and time is money too. Like the quicker you can do things and get it sold again, that money can go towards another project, and you can keep rolling.
Right.
So, you know, time, getting the property really at a reasonable price, and controlling the costs are the 3 major factors.
That's some good advice. And a lot of emotion, I'm sure, goes into buying some of that stuff. So trying to keep your emotions in check, huh?
Yeah, I think, like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you're doing it to make money. So a lot of people, I think, they they kind of go, oh, this would be really cool and this would be cool, but then they spend too much money.
Right.
That's the biggest issue people have. And then there's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum where people are a little bit too thrifty and the property looks a little inexpensive, and then when you walk into it, you go, the quality's not here.
Right.
So it's all about sort of like playing in the pool of your price range. Like, for example, we bought a house for under 300, and we plan to sell it for in the 750 to 800 range. In that range, you have to have the nice appliances, the nice fixtures. You have to walk in and be like, okay, this is an amazing, high quality piece of work. You have to have all the great counters and the beautiful sinks and the nice architectural features. Right. At that point, you do have to spend the money. But if you're buying something at 300 and selling it at 450, you have to find a way to make something look good and still not cost you a lot of money. So it all depends on the neighborhood that you're playing in. But it all comes down to that first step, which is buying the property right. And for me, how I do that is, I'm on MLS every day. I set up alerts for different neighborhoods. And as soon as something pops up in this neighborhood, for example, for under 300, I know about it. And I can go in and grab it if it looks like a good deal. But at least information is power. And we got a really good deal on the property that we're doing now. So I'm really looking forward to actually doing my first project with Lauren, which is going to be cool.
That's exciting. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. So yeah, being hyper aware of the MLS and kind of just making sure you're dedicating time to that.
Yeah, like do your homework. Like we bought this one and I compared this home to everything that sold in the neighborhood in the last year, and it was $60,000 below everything else that sold. So I said, okay, this is a good deal. And the lot was good, and how it was situated. And I think a lot of investors too, they get scared away with some properties. Like this property, it's like literally ready to fall down. But the structure's there and the land's good, and those are the two things you need.
That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you and Lauren were involved in this house that you're flipping. So tell me a little bit more about that. It's cool to know that Lauren's included in this as well.
Yeah, so we've always talked about this since we got together of, buying a little flip house, designing it together and selling it. At first, she really wanted to get her license, but I think she realized that she wanted to do other things and that I could kind of handle that aspect of it. But she loves the design portion of it, what it's going to look like, the finishes. And what's really cool is we have a very similar taste, so it's been really easy designing this first house together. So the first step was working with an architect and kind of laying it out and getting the layout of the house. But I think she's going to be really great when it comes to the finishes, how the cabinets are going to look, the color palette, the fixtures. She has a really good eye for that. And I know that because when we were buying our first house together, she was really on top of it. And she really liked a lot of the things that I like too. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, you guys have good taste. I'm just looking around here. So
yeah. And it's going to be a little difficult because she's,
right.
Expecting. So, she won't be involved in the demo or any of that kind of stuff. But, it'll be a fun project for her because she'll be at home a lot. And there's a lot of things you can do from home, working with interior designers and kind of figuring out the layout of things. So I think she's excited to take that on too.
That's great. Yeah, and that's something great. That's what's also great about real estate and being part of that business. You can share that with your significant other, and that's that type of thing can be very important to people. So
yeah, it's cool. It'll give us something to do together, and I think when we're done with our first project, it'll feel like a big accomplishment, and it'll probably bring us closer just because it's fun to work with your significant other. And I think she's really looking forward to it.
Great. Yeah. All right. So important thing, especially when you're running your own business, is goal setting. I feel is important. So what are some of your goals that you have planned out so far?
Yeah. So Remax, the brokerage I work for, has sort of a tier system, so in 2017 I was a platinum agent, and that's over $250,000 in commission. And then above that you have, chairman, and you have below that you've got executives. So you have all these different levels. So for this year, I'd love to hit platinum again. I think that was an awesome goal to achieve. It's difficult because every year is different. The market changes, but it's attainable, and I think what I do for myself is I have a book that I write in pretty much every day. It's called The Best Self Journal. and it kind of holds you accountable. It breaks your year down, and it sort of works backwards. But every morning you say, okay, I'm thankful for this. You write a few things you're thankful for. You schedule out your day. At the end of the day, and then you also write 3 things you'd love to accomplish, like the major things that you need to do in that day. And then at the end of the day, it also, it asks you, what were the wins for today? Because I think when you're goal setting, a lot of the times you get frustrated because you're not achieving the goal. But if you have a lot of small little tasks that you've checked off and accomplished, it really sort of builds a more, it builds like a better platform to be able to succeed because you feel like you are accomplishing things along the way. So every day I write down what I accomplished for the day. And if I have 2 or 3 really good things, I feel good about that day. And it sort of builds all towards a larger goal.
Nice.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's a little complicated.
No, it makes sense because you want to mentally check off, right? Those little things to try to achieve that bigger thing.
Yeah, it's like, if you say to yourself, I want to make $500,000 in commission, this goal seems so unattainable. Right. It's a huge goal. And a lot of times when people are looking at a huge task or something that they want to do, they don't do anything because it's really hard to climb a mountain in one step. You have to just kind of chip at it. And if you set a whole bunch of little tiny goals along the way, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm almost there.
Right.
And that's kind of the idea behind that book. And it's helped me a lot.
That's definitely some great advice because goal setting certainly isn't easy. And that's definitely some nuggets that our viewers can definitely use.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Great. Awesome. What would that be your advice for someone starting out goals, something along those lines? Is there any other tips that you have for goal setting?
I think mainly it's all about writing things down. I think there's some power into that. A lot of people are on their phones all the time and no one really takes notes anymore, like handwritten notes, but there's something about writing something down. Right. Even if you have tasks for the day, a lot of times I'll take out my phone and I'll have them sort of in notes. But if I actually make a piece of paper, write down notes, it seems to get done quicker.
Right.
Because I think there's a mental thing about writing something physically and not just on your phone.
Yeah, some people are visual, so that's definitely huge. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's how I like to do it. Sometimes even my phone doesn't do it justice. Like when it comes to Google Calendar, stuff like that, it's super, super useful, but I also have a written calendar as well. So that's definitely some good advice. I know it helps me. So.
Yeah, I think visually too, like with your phone, you're always on your phone. You're looking through Instagram, you're checking your email, and when an alert pops up, sometimes you just kind of ignore it.
Right.
But if you write something down, it's something different than your norm, then it makes it more tangible, and I think it helps it get done quicker.
Right. Nothing more satisfying than taking that pen and crossing it off.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was some really good tips, but this is the most important question I have of the day.
Okay.
Who's your favorite twin, Alec or me?
I can't answer that. I love you guys both equally.
Thanks, Arie. Well, guys, this was definitely a great interview. Something I've always wanted to dive in with Arie because, like many people, including myself, definitely interested in getting started into the real estate world, which will not be easy for anybody, but there are ways to overcome that, and Arie has proved some examples here. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Arie.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Love you, bed.
Yeah, love you too.
All right, man.